Tipping is absolute bull. Think about it. We, the customer, have to pick up the tab for the business owner who can't pay his employees a decent and dignified wage? That business should be out of business. Why is it always investor rights and not workers' rights? What a mind. Tipping is ruling class propaganda. Tipping is another vicious tactic in the class war between labor and capital. And we're supposed to feel guilty? Good, hardworking class members of society are supposed to feel guilty for not leaving a tip while the fucking corporate owners make out like a bandit? Please, spare me. No more guilt tripping, okay? Why does the service industry offload the costs of labor onto the general public? If you can't pay your employees a decent wage, then you don't deserve to have a business. Owners are so dedicated to exploiting their workers so they can eke out more profits for themselves. So now it's up to us, other working class members of society, to pick up the tab for corporate greed? I don't think so. How is that our responsibility? This needs to change. Who said this was okay? Good, hardworking class members of society are supposed to feel guilty for not leaving a tip?
Yes, because you understand that tipping is involved in the situations that you are entering into.
No, brother. The public does not decide. Corporations do. We live in the political economy of capitalism.
If it means so much to me to not support a tipping culture, then I will go to establishments where tipping is not expected.
And that's really awesome that you can self-report your own privilege by saying you get to pick and choose which businesses you can support and which businesses you don't. But a lot of people don't have that option. So to say that I can just magically curate my consumption habits, divorced from the political economy of capitalism that I live in, is silly. I feel like somebody should explain capitalism to you, how it tends toward monopolies, and how the consolidation of wealth and power accumulates into ever fewer hands. The working class public goes to the places that are most accessible to them. Coffee shops, restaurants, the entire service industry relies on tips. It is absolutely pervasive and omnipresent. To say that, oh, you're just going to boycott all of these establishments. A lot of people don't have that option. They have to go to what's accessible to them. You blaming individual people for not properly boycotting the capitalist system when they're literally steeped in it is capitalist propaganda. You should be holding the corporations responsible, not individual people. Like, I know you're not getting paid by corporate America for this video, clearly, but you should be, because you're blaming individuals. You're telling people it's their fault. Yeah, it's their fault for corporate crimes against the working class.
You are not justified and morally superior for stiffing your server because you don't believe in tipping.
Nowhere did I say that I don't tip. Obviously, I understand that in the current political economy, service industry workers who are just like myself, working class people, rely on tips, so I tip them. But that doesn't mean I like it, or that I can somehow forego all of the businesses that require me to tip in order for me to get the things that I need. This is more capitalist propaganda, offloading the blame, the responsibility, the costs onto more working class people in order to let corporations make out scot-free. A better question is, why is the employee facing the backlash an institutional imperative in capitalism? Why is it that no matter which way you slice it or dice it, the workers are the ones that get fucked over? Why is it always labor that gets undermined? Why is it that a company can afford everything under the sun except for the cost of labor? People need to understand the problems of society are institutional and systemic. No individual is going to solve the issue. See, I don't like this question because you're once again placing the onus and the responsibility back onto individual consumers as if they have an option. And for us to simply voice our dissent for the system must mean that we are also implicating and victimizing the working class, which we are a part of. We are calling attention to the crimes of the corporate class. Yes, ask yourself, why is it that the employee always faces the backlash? Because it's legally mandated to be this way. Who materially has power in this situation? Who's running the show? Who makes the decisions? Who is in control of the institutions that govern public life? Is it individual consumers or is it corporations? We're not telling people not to tip. We're trying to dismantle the political economy of capitalism. We are holding the corporate class responsible. No one else. We are understanding the class-based society that we are living in, and we are not punching left or right or down. We're punching up, and we need to punch up together as a class. There's one side in this vicious class war that is completely class conscious and completely organized, and that is the business class. And until we learn to organize, until we learn to fight these institutions with institutions of our own, we're going to continue to get it in the neck.
Listen to this absolute spineless corporate bootlicker as he unironically defends the boot and tells us that restaurants cannot pay their workers a living wage or else cost will go up. This is good old capitalist propaganda. No matter what is never taken into account is corporate profits. It's never taken into account that the people that should take a hit are the corporate ownership class. It's always the workers. If we raise the wages, well, the cost is just going to go up. The cost of the services are just going to go up. The people that are going to get fucked are always the workers. So we have to literally starve the workers that are working for the business. This is a newsflash, okay? If a business cannot afford to pay its workers a living wage, then that business does not deserve to be in operation. Won't someone please think of the poor corporations that are going to go out of business if they dare to pay their workers a livable wage? Oh my God. It is just simply outside the range of acceptable thinking to suggest that CEOs, that the managerial business executives, that the central bankers should be picking up the tab, should be taking a hit. You'd think this guy was Steven Schwartzman the way that he's talking about the economy. But no, he's a worker. He's a worker just like you and me. With working class friends like this who think they're Peter Thiel, who needs enemies? Literally, we live in a world where 3 Americans own more than 150 million Americans. And you still have corporate bootlickers defending the boot. You pay a living wage, the cost will go up. We can't pay workers a living wage, then inflation. You have 2 choices, folks. Workers either get f***ed over at the workplace or they get f***ed over at the store. There is literally no other option. Tipping is bullshit. And then I hear you say, hey, those workers depend on tips for their survival. And that's exactly right. Why do they depend on tips for their survival? Who are the actual criminals in this scenario? We should be focusing on them. We should be attacking them. They offload the costs of labor to the general public, who are themselves workers. And you know, some of you have the ability to avoid places that require you to tip, and all the more power to you. But a lot of us don't. And we, the people, have a right to complain about it. We can gripe about it if we don't like it. There are plenty of things that I do in the political economy of capitalism that I don't agree with, but I still do it. Why should someone's basic survival needs be deprived from them and then ransomed back to them and only returned to us after we've rented our time, our bodies, our entire lives to an entity that will afford us basic human rights? An entity that will give us the basket of commodities that we need in order to reproduce ourselves to the marketplace the very next day. Make this make sense. I'm not saying don't tip. I'm saying get organized. Organize against the corporate class. Organize against the capitalists. Organize against the actual criminals of society. So join unions. We need more workers that are in unions. At the very least, have class consciousness. In order to win a class war, you have to understand who your class enemies are. This is a class war that we are in, and we have to know when to attack, and we have to fight institutions with institutions.
Nixon ordered Cambodian genocide. Clinton sent cruise missiles to Sudan, people died. Obama gave the orders to do drone strikes. Reagan invaded Nicaragua in '85.